The kingdom of Werewolf had not seen such silence in decades. Normally, the streets of the capital thrummed with life, merchants shouting, horses clattering, children laughing, but today, a heavy, unnatural stillness hung over the city. News had spread like wildfire. The Alpha King, KL, had died. The Grand Palace, usually a place of strict order and careful discipline, now felt hollow. Servants moved like shadows, whispering in corners, courtiers dressed in their finest, yet their eyes betrayed worry, fear, and ambition. Without Kale's presence, the careful balance of power teetered dangerously. Eren, the Omega bound to the Alpha King, sat in the quiet of the private chamber. His hands rested on his knees, trembling slightly. He had always known Kale was strong, unyielding, and sometimes ruthless, but to lose him perhaps forever was a void Eren had never imagined. His heart felt hollow, as if the world had lost its color. For years, Eren had served Kale, not only as a companion, but as someone who understood the king's moods, fears, and desires in ways no one else could. He had felt Kale's anger like a distant thunderstorm and his joy like the first rays of dawn. To be separated from him was unbearable. Yet, even in his grief, Eren's mind worked like a sharp blade. Something did not sit right. The reports of Kale's death were vague, the evidence suspiciously clean. The king's private chambers had been untouched. No blood, no struggle, only a single feather of black and silver. The kind Kale kept as a token from his first conquest. Eren rose, his long cloak brushing the polished stone floor. He stepped toward the window and looked out over the city. Soldiers and nobles whispered in the streets, some faces masked by excitement, others by fear. The kingdom would change today. The power vacuum would be filled, and many would seize the opportunity to betray KL, to claim the throne or destroy anyone still loyal. Eren's stomach twisted at the thought. He could not allow that to happen, not while Kale was gone, if Kale was truly gone. He remembered the nights he had spent in the shadow of the throne, listening to Kale's voice as the king spoke of his fears and plans. Kale had trusted no one but Eren, sharing secrets of the kingdom, stories of battles lost and won, and even private thoughts that no courtier could comprehend. That trust was sacred, and Eren knew it. Yet grief, as sharp as it was, did not blind him. Eren had always been observant, and certain things did not fit. The guards' faces held an unusual calm, too precise, too controlled, as if they had rehearsed their grief, and the sudden silence among the palace servants felt unnatural. Even the king's advisors, who normally bickered like children over minor decisions, now offered only silent bows. Eren moved through the corridors like a shadow, his senses alert. Every creaking floorboard, every rustle of fabric, made him pause. He reached Kale's private chamber, the one where he often slept when the king's duties demanded secrecy. The door was closed, yet it bore no sign of forced entry. Eren's fingers brushed the carved wood, tracing the intricate patterns the king had insisted be hand-carved by the finest artisans. He whispered, almost to himself, "I know you're alive. I feel you." A faint chill swept through the room. The candles flickered, and a shadow moved across the wall. Eren froze. His breath caught. Whoever or whatever was there had waited for him to speak. The shadow did not advance, but it did not retreat. Eren's mind raced. Could it be Kale? Or was it someone testing him? A spy sent by those who wanted the throne? He stepped back, readying himself to flee or fight, yet he felt a strange pull, a whisper in his mind that felt like Kale's presence. Suddenly, the door opened with a soft creak. A messenger, young and pale-faced, stepped in. "Master Eren," he said, bowing quickly. "I bring news from the North Gate. The scouts report movement strangers, armored and fast. They may be loyal, but their banners, they do not belong to Werewolf." Eren's mind sharpened. The kingdom was already vulnerable, and now these unknown forces threatened it further. He nodded, taking the scroll the messenger offered. The seal was broken, yet the paper inside was clean, bearing only a sigil, a black wolf encircled by silver flames. It was Kale's mark. one used only for secret messages meant for Iron. A shiver ran down Iron's spine. Kale was alive. That much was certain. The king's careful handwriting confirmed it. Yet the message was incomplete. A single phrase scrawled across the bottom. Trust no one. Watch the throne. I return when all is ready. Iron sank to his knees, holding the scroll close. Relief surged through him, mingled with anxiety. Kale had not abandoned him, but the path forward was dangerous. Many would betray the king for power. Many would see Iron's loyalty as weakness to exploit. And Kale, he had chosen to vanish rather than face his enemies directly. Iron rose, determination setting into his bones. The scroll's sigil glimmered faintly in the candlelight, as if imbued with some magic only Iron could feel. He wrapped it carefully in his cloak and set out into the corridors, moving swiftly, yet silently. Every corner, every shadow, could hide an enemy. Every whisper of movement might conceal a traitor. As he passed the throne room, he caught sight of the empty chair where Kale had once sat. Memories flooded him, the laughter, the quiet conversations late at night. The intense, almost unbearable moments of connection between Alpha and Omega. Iron's heart ached with longing, yet it was sharpened into focus. He could not afford to falter. The palace gates loomed ahead. Iron stepped into the open courtyard, where soldiers and nobles were gathering. Some glanced at him with suspicion, others with curiosity. He ignored them all. His eyes scanned the horizon. Toward the north, where the scouts had reported movement. If Kale was alive, Aaron would find him. If enemies were plotting, he would expose them. He moved like a shadow through the city, a silent force acting on instinct and training. Even as whispers followed him, some questioning his sanity, some praising his devotion, Iron felt only one thing. A bond that could not be broken, a loyalty stronger than fear or death. Kale had taught him that trust was sacred, and Iron would honor it with every step. Hours passed as he navigated the narrow streets and alleys. The city had changed in subtle ways. Familiar merchants were gone. New faces watched him from the shadows, and the air carried tension like the calm before a storm. Iron's mind raced, plotting each movement carefully. He knew he could not act openly. If Kale's enemies suspected that Iron knew the king lived, they would strike without hesitation. Finally, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of gold and blood, Iron reached the edge of the city. The northern forest stretched before him, dark, ancient, and alive with whispered secrets. He paused, feeling the faint pulse of magic in the air, a rhythm only he could sense. Kale had often spoken of this place, where the wild magic of the kingdom was strongest, where no outsider dared tread. Iron took a deep breath. He clutched the scroll to his chest and whispered into the wind, "I will find you, no matter the cost." A distant howl answered him, long and mournful, yet filled with power. The sound made his blood run cold and warm at the same time. He smiled faintly, feeling a mixture of fear and hope. Kale was alive, waiting, testing, planning, and Iren would not fail him. As darkness fell and the first stars appeared, the forest seemed to shift. Shadows danced among the trees, and a faint wind carried whispers only Iron could hear. He shivered, not from cold, but from anticipation. The kingdom was in turmoil, the court was in chaos, and the Alpha King's disappearance was only the beginning. Iron stepped into the forest, his cloak brushing against twisted roots and fallen leaves. Each step brought him closer to Kale, closer to the truth, and closer to danger. The howl echoed again, stronger this time, resonating in his chest. It was both a warning and a promise. Iron paused at a clearing, kneeling briefly as if to feel the pulse of the land, of the magic, of Kale himself. His lips moved in a soft, urgent prayer. "Guide me. Protect me. Let me not fail you." A shadow flickered in the distance, barely noticeable, yet unmistakable. Iron's breath caught. He knew somewhere out there, watching him, was the king he had sworn to serve. Alive. Testing loyalty. waiting for Iron to act, and Iron would not hesitate. The night deepened, swallowing the clearing, as if the world itself held its breath. The game had begun, and Iren was ready to play. The northern forest was alive, yet silent in ways that made Iren uneasy. The wind whispered through the black pines, carrying scents of wet earth and distant smoke. Shadows moved unnaturally between the trunks, as if the trees themselves were aware of his presence. Every step Iren took seemed measured, precise, his senses alert to danger. The scroll Kale had sent remained tucked close to his chest, a lifeline, a promise, and a warning all at once. For hours, he had followed faint signs, broken branches, footprints half hidden in the moss, the subtle crack of twigs that spoke of someone or something moving ahead. His heart raced, yet a strange calm guided him. He had learned from Kale that instincts were as vital as strategy. Trust the feeling, but question the evidence. Iren repeated it to himself as he stepped over a fallen log, careful not to make sound. The deeper he went, the denser the forest became. Light barely pierced the thick canopy, leaving the ground in permanent dusk. The air grew colder, and a thin mist curled around his ankles. Iren tightened his cloak, aware that the forest was ancient, full of magic older than the throne of Varith itself. It was said that the northern wilds were cursed by forgotten kings, places where spirits wandered and secrets lingered like shadows. A sudden rustle made him freeze. His hand went instinctively to the dagger hidden beneath his cloak, but he held it loosely. Out of the fog stepped a figure tall, cloaked, face hidden beneath a hood. Iren's pulse leapt. He could sense the power in this person. It was not a stranger but someone trained in combat and stealth, someone who could harm him if he misstepped. Who walks the forest at night? The figure's voice was deep, smooth, yet carrying an edge of caution. Iren straightened. I seek the Alpha King, he said firmly, though his voice betrayed his urgency. I am his Omega. I come with loyalty, not harm. The figure paused, studying him. Then, almost silently, the hood was pulled back. A familiar face emerged, pale in the moonlight, eyes sharp and wary. It was Kale. Iren's breath caught. He fell to his knees instinctively, overwhelmed with relief, fear, and a longing he could not suppress. Kale, you are alive, he whispered, voice trembling. I feared. Kale knelt before him, placing a hand gently on Iren's shoulder. His touch was warm, grounding, yet charged with a strange, dangerous energy. I am alive, Kale said quietly, his voice steady, but carrying the weight of everything he had endured. I had to leave. I had to know who would remain loyal when I was gone. Iren looked into the Alpha King's eyes, seeing both the commanding ruler and the man who had shared countless moments with him in trust and intimacy. You left me to face them alone? Iren asked, his voice a mixture of pain and accusation. Kale's expression darkened, but it softened as well, just slightly. It was necessary, he said. The court is full of vipers. They would kill without hesitation for the crown. I needed to know who they were and who you were, Iren. Iren's hands tightened around the scroll. Loyalty is not a test, Kale. It is given freely. You cannot force it through fear or absence. His voice grew firmer, more commanding. I have served you, not because you hide or punish, but because I believe in you, because I care for you. Kale's eyes flickered with a storm of emotion. Pride, regret, longing, and something unspoken passed between them. He reached out, brushing a loose strand of hair from Iren's face. And yet, you came. You risked everything to find me. That proves what I needed to see. The forest seemed to lean closer, listening, as if aware that this reunion was not only dangerous but significant. The faint glow of magical light pulsed along the edges of the clearing, revealing strange runes etched into the bark of surrounding trees, remnants of curses long forgotten, remnants of power Kale had often warned Iren to avoid. We do not have long, Kale said, rising and extending a hand to Iren. They will come. The Duke will not wait. He has armies gathering. And if he discovers I am alive, the kingdom could fall before we even step back into the palace. Iron rose, taking Kale's hand without hesitation. The contact sent a spark of reassurance through him, a reminder that they were stronger together. Then we prepare, Iron said, his voice steady, resolute. I have been watching the court, learning what I could. There are allies we can trust. And we know who seeks to betray you. Kale's lips curved into the faintest of smiles, rare and fleeting. Your insight is invaluable, he said, letting a hint of warmth touch his tone. You have grown stronger in my absence. Perhaps I underestimated what you could do. Iron flushed slightly at the praise, though he did not let it show. It is not strength alone that matters, he said, but understanding, strategy, and courage. We must act wisely, Kale. Kale nodded, his eyes scanning the forest as if he could already sense the approaching threat. Then we move, he said. We cannot linger. The Duke's forces are swift, and the wilds themselves may test us further. Magic here is old and unpredictable. Trust nothing but each other. As they moved deeper into the forest, Kale explained why he had faked his death. There had been whispers of rebellion among the nobles, plots so deep that no one could be trusted without proof. The test had been cruel, yes, but it had revealed truths about loyalty, love, and power. Iron listened, feeling a mixture of relief, anger, and understanding. The king's decision had been harsh, but it had been a necessary risk. The night grew colder. Shadows lengthened, and the forest seemed alive with eyes, watching, waiting. Strange sounds echoed, rustling leaves, distant footsteps, a low growl that might have been wolf, might have been something older, something magic-born. Aaron held Kale's hand tightly, sensing the bond that tied them, stronger than fear, stronger than distance. Hours passed. They reached a small glade, where a stream reflected the pale moonlight. Kale knelt beside the water, examining the reflections of the trees, the stars, and Iren's worried face. This place, it has power, Kale murmured. It can reveal truths and lies alike. Stay close, Omega. Trust only me. Aaron knelt beside him. I always have, he said softly, almost a whisper. The words hung in the air. A promise, a confession, and a declaration of loyalty that neither needed to question. Kale's eyes softened. And I will not fail you again. But we must be cautious. The Duke's spies are everywhere. Even shadows may carry betrayal. Our path is dangerous. But together, we can endure. A sudden rustle of leaves alerted them both. Iron's hand went to the dagger again, Kale's fingers brushing it gently to signal calm. From the trees emerged a scout, a loyal soldier who had evaded the Duke's spies and found the northern wilds. My king, Master Iron, the scout said, bowing. The Duke has begun his march. His forces are stronger than we anticipated. You must return, and quickly, if we are to protect the kingdom. Kale stood, towering over the scout, a figure of authority and power even in the dim light. We will return, he said, his voice steady, but not yet. The path is treacherous, and rushing without knowledge is death. We need the element of surprise, and we need to reclaim loyalty before we confront him. Iron nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. It was not only their lives at stake, but the kingdom, the people, and the delicate balance of power. Yet even with the danger looming, he felt a deep, unshakable certainty. He would follow Kale through fire, through shadow, through anything. Because loyalty and love were intertwined, and he would not fail. As the night deepened, the forest seemed to close around them, alive with whispers and unseen movement. Kyle and Iron huddled near the stream, preparing for what lay ahead. They shared no words, only glances full of understanding, tension, and longing. The bond between them had been tested, And though pain lingered from Kale's absence, their connection had grown stronger, almost unbreakable. Suddenly, a howl pierced the silence, low and powerful, echoing through the trees. Iron's heart leapt. He recognized it not as a threat, but as a signal, a confirmation. Kale had been watching all along, and the wilds themselves seemed to acknowledge their reunion. Kale's hand found Iron's once more. "We begin tomorrow," he said quietly. "We face the Duke, the court, and the dangers of this forest together. But tonight, we survive. And tonight, we remember that loyalty and courage are stronger than fear or absence." Iron nodded, feeling the pulse of the forest, the magic of the wild, and the warmth of Kale's presence. He understood that this was only the beginning. The journey ahead would be dangerous, but together, they were unstoppable. And as the moon rose high above the trees, casting silver light across their path, Iron whispered, "I will not leave you again, Kale." "Never," the forest answered with a shiver of wind, carrying distant howls and the promise of trials yet to come. The forest seemed endless, twisting and folding like a living labyrinth. Each step Iron and Kale took was careful, measured, for the northern wilds held dangers older than any army. The moonlight barely pierced the thick canopy, and the shadows stretched long and strange across the moss-covered ground. Every sound, the snap of a twig, the whisper of leaves made them pause. Iron walked beside Kale, feeling the reassuring weight of his hand brushing against his own. Even after the reunion, the tension between them lingered. Their connection was deep, but the king's deception had left a wound, a quiet echo of pain that neither could ignore. Yet, as they moved, the silence between them held more understanding than words ever could. Kale's eyes, sharp and calculating, scanned the forest constantly. "We are close," he said finally, his voice low, almost a growl. "The Duke's forces camp near the old ruins. If we strike wisely, we can catch them unprepared. But be careful, the forest itself does not welcome intruders." Iron nodded. "I trust you, Kale. Show me what to do, and I will follow." His voice was steady, though his heart thumped fiercely. Trust was one thing, fear was another, and the forest carried both. As they approached a clearing, the faint glow of firelight flickered ahead. Kale signaled Iron to stay low, crouching beside him behind a cluster of twisted roots. There, through the trees, they saw the Duke's soldiers heavily armored, unaware of the eyes watching them from the darkness. Kale whispered instructions. "We will not attack directly. That is foolish. Instead, we use the terrain, the forest, and the magic lingering here. I will distract their scouts. You follow and secure the path for retreat. If we succeed, we weaken their forces before the battle reaches the city." Iron's heart raced. He had trained for such missions, but never had the stakes been this high. Never had his loyalty been tested so fully. And yet, beneath the fear, he felt a strange exhilaration. He was with Kale, and together they were stronger than any army. The first move was subtle. Kale shifted into the shadows, becoming nearly invisible. A faint pulse of energy, barely perceptible, seemed to ripple through the forest as he passed. The leaves whispered, the branches bent, and the firelight flickered in response. Kale had always been attuned to magic, but Iron had never seen him wield it so deliberately. Iron followed cautiously, relying on instinct and memory. He remembered Kale's teachings, the soft pressure of the earth beneath their feet, the rhythm of the forest, the smallest signs of danger. Every step was a test, and every breath counted. Suddenly, a scout emerged from the darkness, sword in hand. Kale moved first, stepping from shadow to shadow, eyes glinting. A sharp pulse of energy sent the scout sprawling to the ground. Dazed but unharmed, Iron approached quickly, securing the area. The forest had shielded them, bending the shadows to Kale's will. They moved further into the enemy camp, unseen, undetected. Iron felt a mixture of awe and tension. Kale's power was formidable, but the danger was real. Every soldier could mean death if they were discovered. And yet, Iron's heart swelled with loyalty and admiration. Kale had tested him, and now they faced this together not as king and servant, but as partners bound by trust, respect, and something deeper. Hours passed as they navigated the camp, disabling traps and silently neutralizing threats. Kale's movements were precise, elegant, and lethal, though he spared life whenever possible. Aaron followed, learning, assisting, growing into a role he had never fully realized until this moment. Finally, they reached the central tent, the Duke's command post. Inside, papers and maps were scattered across a table. Kale crouched beside Iron, whispering instructions. These maps show the Duke's plan. He intends to strike the capital before dawn. We cannot allow this. You will carry this information back. I will create a distraction long enough for you to escape. Aaron's chest tightened. Leaving Kale behind, even for a short time, filled him with anxiety. I cannot leave you, he said, voice barely a whisper. Not again. Kale looked into Iron's eyes, seeing the fierce loyalty, the courage, and the quiet fear. He placed a hand gently on Iron's cheek. You must, he said softly. I trust you to survive. I trust you to protect our kingdom. You are stronger than you know. Remember that. Iron swallowed, nodding reluctantly. He pressed the scroll containing the maps close to his chest and slipped into the shadows. Kale remained, a dark figure blending with the night, eyes glinting with determination and something unspoken affection, longing, and a quiet challenge. The forest seemed to come alive again. Shadows moved with Kale, bending and twisting to shield him. The Duke's soldiers stirred, confused by the sudden movements and strange whispers. Kale used the forest itself as a weapon, forcing the enemy into chaos without striking directly. Aaron ran, carrying the information back toward the edge of the northern wilds. Each step was measured, careful, yet he could not suppress the worry gnawing at him. Kale was alone, facing the full strength of the enemy, and Aaron could do nothing but hope that the king's skill and power would be enough. As dawn began to lighten the sky, Aaron reached a safe distance. He paused, looking back into the forest. Mist curled through the trees, and he could just make out the figure of Kale, standing tall and commanding, surrounded by shadows. Aaron's heart ached with longing. He wanted to run back, to fight beside Kale, yet he knew his duty required him to return with the intelligence that could save the kingdom. The journey back was tense. Aaron avoided patrols, navigated hidden paths, and relied on every lesson Kale had taught him. The scroll in his hand burned with importance, a symbol of trust and responsibility. He could feel Kale's presence, almost like a heartbeat in the air, guiding him, protecting him, and reminding him of their bond. When Aaron finally returned to the northern edge of the city, he was exhausted but resolute. He delivered the maps to loyal advisors hidden in secret chambers, warning them of the imminent attack. The knowledge would allow them to prepare defenses, to rally soldiers, and to protect the innocent. Yet even in this moment of triumph, Aaron could not shake the image of Kale, alone in the forest, standing against impossible odds. The bond between them, tested by absence and danger, had only grown stronger. Aaron's mind returned again and again to the king, to the way Kale had looked at him, and to the silent promise that they would face this together. Night fell again, and Aaron could not rest. He felt the pull of the northern wilds, the call of Kale's presence like a thread woven through the darkness. He could not ignore it. He prepared quietly, moving through the shadows toward the forest once more. The moon rose, silver and cold, lighting the path that led him back to the man he had sworn to serve and protect. When Aaron emerged into the clearing, Kale was there, leaning against a tree, calm, yet tense. Their eyes met, and for a long moment, no words were spoken, only the understanding that their bond had survived the night, that loyalty and courage had been proven, and that together, they could face whatever was coming next. Kale approached, and Aaron felt the weight of his gaze, both challenging and protective. You returned, Kale said quietly. You could have stayed safe. I could not, Iron replied. I would rather face danger with you than live in safety without you. His voice held the raw truth of his feelings, the unshakable loyalty that had carried him through the night. Kale's expression softened, and for a brief moment, the world seemed to shrink to the clearing, to the forest, to the bond between Alpha and Omega. Yet the danger was far from over. The Duke's forces were closer, stronger, and their plan to seize the throne was already in motion. The forest, the night, and even their own kingdom held challenges they had yet to face. Kale's hand found Iron's, gripping tightly. Tomorrow, he said, voice steady, we reclaim what is ours. But tonight we survive. Together. Iron nodded, feeling the strength and warmth in Kale's hand, and a deep certainty that whatever tests awaited them, they would face them side by side. The forest whispered around them, shadows bending and shifting as if alive. Somewhere, a distant howl echoed, a reminder that the wilds themselves were aware of their bond and the trials to come. Iron held Kale's hand a moment longer, drawing courage, warmth, and resolve from their connection. And as the first light of dawn crept through the trees, painting the forest in silver and gold, they prepared for the challenges that lay ahead together, unbroken and ready to face the storm. Dawn broke over the kingdom of Werewolf, painting the horizon with streaks of gold and crimson. The northern wilds had grown quiet, but the tension lingered like a storm on the edge of the sky. Kale and Iron stood together on a hill overlooking the enemy encampment. The Duke's forces were arranged below, their banners dark against the morning light, unaware that the Alpha King they thought dead had returned. Kale's gaze swept over the battlefield. Every movement, every shift of shadow was accounted for. The forest had aided them, masking their approach, bending the unseen magic of the land to their will. But he knew the fight ahead would be perilous. Betrayal and ambition had left scars on Werewolf, and the Duke's ambition threatened to destroy the fragile peace Kale had fought to maintain. Iron's hand rested on Kale's arm, grounding him. He had survived the night, navigated the treacherous forest, and delivered the intelligence that would guide their strategy. Yet, despite his successes, worry lingered in his chest. Kale had endured solitude and danger in the forest. Now, the final confrontation awaited, and Iron could not bear the thought of losing him again. Kale turned to Iron, eyes sharp yet soft, filled with unspoken emotion. Are you ready? He asked, voice low but commanding. This will not be easy, and the Duke will not relent. Iron nodded. I am ready. I have your back, Kale. Always. His words were firm, filled with the loyalty and love that had carried him through the past nights. Kale allowed a small smile, rare and fleeting, a moment of warmth before the storm. They descended toward the encampment, moving like shadows through the morning mist. Kale led, his presence commanding, yet careful. Iron followed, attuned to Kale's movements, ready to act without hesitation. Together, they were more than Alpha and Omega. They were a force united by trust, courage, and an unbreakable bond. As they approached the Duke's tent, a flare of movement caught Kale's eye. Scouts, moving ahead to confirm their position. Kale raised a hand, and the forest seemed to respond. Branches bending, shadows twisting to hide their approach. With a quiet signal, Iron moved alongside him, blending into the darkness. Kale's plan was precise. They would strike swiftly, disable the command, and create chaos among the Duke's ranks before the battle reached the capital. But strategy alone was not enough. Courage and instinct would be tested. Kale felt the weight of responsibility, the kingdom, his people, and Iron's safety all rested on his decisions. The scouts appeared unaware of the Alpha King's return. Kale acted first. A subtle pulse of energy rippling through the clearing. One scout stumbled, disoriented, and Iron moved in to quietly restrain him, ensuring no alarm was raised. The forest itself seemed to aid them, shadows twisting to obscure their movements. Inside the Duke's tent, Kale's eyes locked on the maps and the soldiers preparing for an attack. With precise movements, he disrupted their plans, scattering them into confusion. Aaron followed closely, neutralizing threats silently and efficiently. Their teamwork was seamless, a testament to the trust and understanding forged in the northern wilds. Outside, the Duke's forces began to stir, sensing the disturbance. Kale and Iron stepped into the open, revealing themselves to the enemy. A collective gasp spread among the soldiers. Their king, thought dead, stood before them, alive and commanding. Kale's voice rang out, strong and unwavering. "The kingdom of Werewolf is not yours to claim. Turn back, or face the consequences of your ambition." His eyes scanned the battlefield, lingering on the Duke, who had emerged, rage and disbelief contorting his features. The Duke drew his sword, signaling his soldiers to attack. But Kale's presence was overwhelming, and the forest seemed to respond to his will. Shadows twisted, roots rose from the earth, and the soldiers hesitated, caught between fear and confusion. Aaron stepped forward beside Kale, the scroll of maps clutched tightly. "Your plans end here," he declared, voice strong and clear. "You underestimated loyalty and courage, and you underestimated the bond between an alpha and his omega." The Duke's forces faltered, and the first clash began. Kale moved with precision, his sword and magic a seamless combination. Iron supported him, striking with skill and strategy, ensuring the enemy could not regroup. Every movement, every strike, was calculated, yet instinctive, born of trust and experience. Despite the chaos, Kale and Iron remained connected, eyes meeting across the battlefield. Words were unnecessary. Their movements spoke of unity, understanding, and unwavering devotion. The Duke's army, though numerous, could not withstand the combined force of the forest's magic and the king's strategy. Slowly, they were pushed back, their morale collapsing under the weight of Kale's presence and Iron's courage. Finally, Kale confronted the Duke directly. The man's rage was palpable, yet he was no match for Kale's skill and the advantage of the forest. With a swift maneuver, Kale disarmed the Duke, sending his sword clattering across the ground. Iron moved beside him, eyes never leaving the king's face, ready to intervene if needed. Kale's voice was cold but measured. "It ends here. Yield, and the kingdom may yet survive your ambition. Resist, and you will fall as all who betray Werewolf do." The Duke's gaze faltered, and he realized the truth: he had been defeated. Outmatched not only in strength, but in unity and purpose. With a reluctant nod, he yielded. Kale stepped back, allowing Iron to breathe alongside him. Their victory was decisive, yet tempered by the knowledge of the kingdom's fragility. As the morning sun rose, the forest seemed to release its tension, the shadows retreating. Kale and Iron stood together, surveying the battlefield. The Duke was captured, his forces scattered, and the threat to the capital had been neutralized. But the trials they had endured were not forgotten. Each had been tested, not only by external danger but by trust, loyalty, and the power of their bond. Kale turned to Iron, eyes softening, the weight of command momentarily replaced by something more personal. "You were extraordinary," he said quietly. "Loyal, brave, and steadfast. I underestimated the strength you carry within you." Aaron felt a warmth spread through him, a mixture of pride and relief. "I only did what was right," he replied softly. "For you. For the kingdom. For what we share." Kale's hand reached for Iron's, fingers entwining. "And that is why we are stronger together. I would not have survived without you. Not fully. You are more than my omega. You are my partner, my equal, my heart." Iron's breath caught. The words, though quiet, carried a weight that filled the clearing. Their journey, the trials, the nights of fear and longing, all led to this moment. The Alpha King, powerful and commanding, and his Omega, loyal and courageous, stood united, their bond unbroken. The kingdom, once on the brink of chaos, began to breathe again. Soldiers returned to their posts, advisors regrouped, and the people sensed the restoration of order. Kale reclaimed his throne, not with fear, but with the confidence born of trust, wisdom, and the courage shown by those who had remained loyal. Yet even in victory, the forest reminded them that life in Werewolf was never without challenges. Shadows lingered at the edges of the trees, the wind carried whispers of old magic, and the distant mountains hinted at dangers still unseen. But Kyle and Iron had endured together, and their unity promised strength for whatever trials awaited. As the sun climbed higher, Kale and Iren stood atop the hill overlooking the kingdom. The wind carried the scent of pine and earth, a reminder of the forest that had tested them, shielded them, and revealed their true strength. Kale placed a hand on Iren's shoulder, a gesture of both authority and intimacy. "You are mine," Kale said softly, his voice carrying the weight of the trials they had faced. "Not by command, but by choice, by trust, by the bond we share." Iren smiled, a mixture of relief and joy. "And I am yours, Kale. Always." The two of them stood in silence, feeling the strength of their bond, the love that had grown through trial and danger, and the quiet power of a kingdom restored. Around them, the forest whispered, the wind sang, and the distant mountains glimmered with promise. And while the challenges of the world remained, Kyle and Iren faced them together, unbroken, their hearts entwined, their courage proven. Loyalty, love, and trust had carried them through darkness into light, and they knew that whatever the future held, they would endure side by side. The kingdom of Werewolf had survived, and so had the bond between Alpha and Omega. Stronger than any danger, greater than any test, unyielding, and eternal.